Well, I was going to shut down my maple syrup run for the year, but it looks like the weatherman might be helping us out with 4 or 5 days and nights in the 20s and days in low 40s to 50s. That's just what we're looking for. All my buckets are full of nastiness. They're full of bugs, they're full of ants, they're full of flies. I'm not so much worried about ants and other normal bugs, but the flies is what concerns me. The flies lay eggs everywhere they go. I don't want fly larvae in my buckets, in my sap, in my syrup. I don't want the presence of the bacteria there. I'm going to go around and collect all my buckets and get them cleaned out. I got me a little bit of water here heating up. I got about 20 gallons in here. I'm going to add about 2 cups of vinegar to that to help out with the bacteria killing. And I got some Dawn dish soap. I'm going to get all these buckets good and cleaned out. The cold weather's not coming until March 9th. Today's the 3rd. So I'm just going to get everything cleaned out, get it staged over here, and on the 7th or 8th I will go put them back out everywhere. We're looking at a 4 or 5 day potential run, and maybe that'll make the season a little better than what's been so far. Everything we do here on the homestead is seasonal. Maple season usually lasts longer than this. I'm telling you, I only collected sap for like 8 days. And I was keeping track here how each time I put a bucket in the evaporator, I marked it on here, so I made sure I knew exactly how much I was going. So you can see here, I did 25 gallons here, I did 25 gallons here, and then this was my redo that I did after I burned up my batch, which gave me, I don't know, we had about 20 gallons. I didn't mark those down. I put it all in at the same time, what was left over that we did not have in the pan. And that's the last we collected. Everything else had to be thrown out. Right, so I'm just putting the barrel back together, and I'll fill it up with water. I'm gonna fill it up a good bit, probably up to about right here. It'll have about, I don't know, 20 gallons of water in it probably. Get me a fire built in here. I gotta close my valve. Get me a fire built in here to get the water warmed up. That helps in the cleaning process. And then we're going to go out here and get our buckets out. Alright, I was hoping to have a really good example of what nasty sap looks like. The sap's not running much, it's been way too warm. But it's hard for you to tell in the camera. The camera does not do this justice. This has gone beyond cloudy and moved to the milky stage. So when we find cloudy sap, a lot of times we'll just stick our finger in it and give it a little taste. And if it's bittery or soury, then it gets tossed out. But this is not a taste here. This is gone from cloudy to milky, and this gets tossed right out. While we're down here, I don't know how well you can see this. These little pointy on the ends. This is the tree getting in the beginning stages of budding and starting to get its new growth, its new leaves for the year. And when it starts to bud, we definitely stop drawing sap from the tree. At this point, the tree needs the sap, and the sugar content significantly reduces because the tree starts to consume some of that sugar. Here's a good example of you can see these little red buds on the end of this one, and this tree right here we just happen to not have tapped. This is a young tree. I've noticed that the younger trees are starting to bud already. The older trees not so much yet. Here's another good look at it. So these things will grow in size and start to open up where it's going to start growing leaves, and at that point we shut down our maple sapping process regardless of what the temperatures are. Just drove by the pallet fairing barn we're building. Hit that subscribe button. Check this thing come to life from beginning to end. Alright, so here's a little bit better of an example. You can see where you can't even see the bottom of the bucket. It's all white in here. And again, the camera doesn't do it justice. Now it's got some, I don't know what kind of flying insects these are on top, but there's a couple of dead flies in the bottom of it, and it smells rancid. It smells horrible. So I gotta get this cleaned out and ready for the next one. Also leaves a bit of a film on the bottom of the, see that? Nastiness, nasty stuff. You can see right there where I scraped my finger in it. Solids on the bottom, nasty stuff. What do you think, Meiji? What do you think? You want to smell it? What do you think? Ooh, yuck. Ooh, nasty. Alright, here's one of the buckets. It sits over here on the corner of the property, and when I'm not collecting every day, sometimes during the heavy runs, a couple of times a day, this bucket kind of gets ignored sometimes. And again, it's not white, it's kind of yellowy like that other one we looked at down there. Hopefully you'll be able to see that here. Yeah, the camera doesn't do it justice. Yellow tint, nasty smell. And film on the bottom as well. All right, here's another bucket that man, I took the lid off this thing and it put me on the floor. Look at this sliminess floating around the top of it. It smells horrible. This is an elderbug. It is not a fly. You know, if elderbugs get in it, I'm not overly concerned about that. We got elderbugs all over the fence, in the eaves of the house, in the doorways, in the windows. It's like they took the replacement of ladybugs this year. First time we've ever had them. And the reason we had them is because elderbugs like maple trees. And I guess, I don't know a lot about elderbugs, but maybe they've been hanging out in these trees for years and years and years and finally decided to come out. I don't know. All right. Oh, see all the nastiness floating around on that? This one's going to get scrubbed. All right, that's the buckets off all my trees. I got 17 trees tapped. Some of them have multiple buckets on them, the bigger trees. I'm gonna get all these things cleaned out. One thing I am very concerned about, this cold spell is gonna come 6 to 7 days from now. I did not take my tubing off, didn't pull my taps. I feel like if I'm gonna go through all that effort, then I might as well just shut down the season. I'm worried about bacteria being trapped in that tubing. So it's something that we'll keep a close eye out on once we start collecting when this next cold spell comes. And taste everything, clear or cloudy, everything will get tasted. If it's bittery or soury, or if I got any question about it at all, it's going to get tossed out. And at that point, we'll just shut down the season. I'm shutting down the season on March 15th, regardless of how much sap we might get or what the weather does. That's going to be the call for me. We already looked at a couple trees that are starting to bud. Some of the younger trees are really headed in that direction. The older trees are going to be there soon. And we will definitely shut down the operation before that takes place and give the tree all the nutrients it needs to make this year's leaves. And so here's a portion of my buckets here. I've got my water about 190 degrees. I want to be able to put my hands in. I do have some heat resistant gloves, waterproof gloves that I'm going to be using. I got some Dawn dish soap. I'm going to scrub these things out real good, give them a good swirl with some of this vinegar water, and I'm going to set me up a pallet here and stack them upside down and let them dry out. We're supposed to get some heavy winds tonight and tomorrow on the backside of this rainstorm. So I think I'm going to do a couple pallets high to hold some weight down and keep them from going all over the place. And I better get busy. I got me a clean bucket here. This is not a sap collection bucket. This is one of my finishing buckets, cleaned out after my last finishing run. Little bit of Dawn detergent in here. I'll put some of this hot vinegar water in it, and then probably spray a little bit in here, get it nice and foamy. All right, that's what that looks like. I'm not going to make you sit here and watch me time lapse through 20 some buckets of cleaning out. So here's my soapy water. It's got a little bit of the hot vinegar water in it. You saw the first thing I did was put a little bit of hot vinegar water in it, swirl it around, washed it out really good with the soap, rinse it out a little bit more with some hot vinegary water, and I gave it a sniff. What I'm looking for is no aroma. And then over here on the pallet, upside down to completely drain out. Hey guys, this is very important in maple sugaring. Bacteria is your enemy when trying to make maple syrup, maple sugar, maple candy. Bacteria, no good at all. This is something I don't normally do mid-season, but we've never had a dormant season either, where we started off strong and then had almost a 2-week period, what we're going up against now, where we haven't collected any sap or very minimal amounts. Some days in the mid 70s, almost 80 one day, in the high 60s, near 70. Yeah, you can't let it sit around like that. All right, I'm going to get on cleaning up the rest of these buckets, and we'll chat again in a minute. All right, there's all my buckets cleaned. Pallets stacked on to keep the wind from blowing them around, and lids. I had to stop and go and get me a rain suit. I was getting soaking wet cleaning these buckets. So again, I can't stress enough how important it is to keep bacteria out of your buckets. I've had a dormant period for about 2 weeks now, and lots of nasty stuff in my buckets. The cold spell is not supposed to come for about 7 days. I'm not even going to put them back out until next Thursday, and hopefully get a good 4 or 5 day run where we can get optimal sap. Usually during periods like that, I get up to 60 gallons a day, even more than that sometimes, and I'll do batches in the 80 to 120 gallon range as opposed to the 30 gallon batches I've been doing so far this year. So stick around for all that. If we get a good sap run, then we'll take you through making syrup all the way from beginning to end. We haven't done any of that this year. We did a little bit of it last year and haven't really touched on it this year. Also going to try and make some candy. That'll be a first time for us here. It'll either be a big success or it'll be a learning experience like everything we do here. So thanks a lot for watching this episode. Make sure you look for Hematite Homestead on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time.